much greater need in Akron that I can't see.
I could have eventually, stood up and postured myself in a very prideful way. You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you got to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? The people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of camping.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron.
Make sure that you love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm like, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation. Conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask that you count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, if this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment from Love Akron forever.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Love Akron Live. This is our encountering platform where we have the opportunity to encounter with area change makers here in Greater Akron. Man, and I'm looking out the window and there's just a little snowfall falling, right? And it's February. It's going to be cold. We all know this. We have kind of, if you will, gotten away, man, without any really, I think, low temperatures and a lot of snow. So we just have to be thankful for that. Man, I'm really excited about today simply because the change maker that we're bringing on today is one that is a value add to Greater Akron for such a time as this. There's been talks and, we're all trying to get educated about the vaccine and learning what's going on, what's fact versus what's myth. And so today I'm so excited to have on, I think I can call him a friend, but to have on a friend, Doug Smith, he serves right now as the lead medical director at our very own Summit County Adam Board. Dr. Smith, welcome, man, and thanks for being with us this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, happy to be your friend, and happy to help out wherever I can. So,
man, I appreciate it, and that's what makes you a change maker, Dr. Smith. And so, hey, this is probably going to be for the first time ever. I'm really just going to hush and be quiet, and I'm just going to give you the platform, Dr. Smith, to really educate us on this vaccine for COVID-19 and looking at what are the myths versus the facts of what's going on and what's happening. And then I'll probably come back towards the end with questions, but I also want to encourage all of our listening audience out there that if you have any questions about this very, very important topic or subject, please put that on the chat and they'll get to me and we'll try to get as many answered as we can. So right now I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Smith. Educate us.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. So I'm thrilled to have the opportunity. I'll try to give you a reasonable detail, but not put you to sleep, and try to give you a sense of what this is all about. And then obviously take any questions anybody has. So the first thing I really want to talk about, because I think this has been concerning for everybody in the American public, but I think particularly for populations of color, given bad background as far as research in this country. So the vaccine development, I should say, has been going on for actually over 200 years. I don't think most of us, I don't remember even learning that in my biology classes, but in 1798, Edward Jenner started to work on the smallpox vaccination, which, as you're aware, probably actually has literally led to the virtual eradication of smallpox in the United States and most of the world, actually. So these vaccines go way back in time. The newer version of the vaccines, in this case for COVID-19, really also have long roots, and they go back, again, all the way back to 1798, but particularly back to 1953. So it's a long time ago in the scheme of science, because Watson and Crick established the double helix model of DNA in 1953, eventually got a Nobel Prize for that. Excellent work. That led us and many subsequent researchers to work on RNA and then messenger RNA, which is what's been used in the two vaccines that are being used right now in the United States. And I'm going to give you a little detail on that. The first thing I want to say, though, is that basically the simple version of this is the mRNA strand is then used within our own cells through the mechanisms of getting it into our body through the vaccine to start to create antibodies against the COVID-19, particularly the original strain. But the good news is the science seems to show that although they may not completely protect us from the newer strains, they are very likely to keep us from getting ill enough to end up in the hospital from the newer strains. And so for me, that's a win. So if I don't have to worry that I'm going to be in the hospital or worse, maybe I'll be sick, that's still better to me than the without a vaccine and the way that works. And the second thing I want to say is because of that mechanism of action, nobody's getting the actual virus from the vaccine. You cannot get COVID of any strain, of any type from this vaccine because it doesn't use the actual COVID. It uses one protein that makes up the COVID-19. So it's not the actual organism, it's just one protein. So I think that's important to understand that. The other component is that before these were released to the American public, or initially actually England and then to the American public, the truth is that they had studied these on about 75,000 people. So it was done in all the same way we test any medication. We had a initial group to make sure that it was not going to be harmful to anybody. We had a testing. There's phase 1, 2, and 3. Basically, there was a phase to make sure that it actually did what it was supposed to do in the petri dish. And then there was obviously the phase with about 75,000 people to make sure that it actually was going to work, not make people needlessly sick and so forth. And so there's really no reason to not believe that either of these vaccines, by Pfizer or by Moderna, which, by the way, their stock symbol is mRNA. So you can see they're right out in front. They're telling you what they did, even by their stock symbol, that they're very, very transparent about the research. The researchers in the background were of all colors. I also want to let you know that this was a large movement, hundreds and hundreds of researchers, about 250 companies have been working on still. Some are working on newer vaccines to come out, and they work. Real quickly, and actually, let me do this first. Let me tell you the study population. So in those two vaccines, Pfizer, which is a shot today and a shot about 3 weeks from now, or Moderna, which is a shot today and a shot about 4 weeks from now. That's, again, based on the research. So we want to be evidence-based where we can. The CDC has now said that they believe you can get the first shot of either and get the other shot within 6 weeks and have protection. So just be aware that there is some new information out there. And unfortunately, that's really because the United States has been slow to get vaccines out to the public. That's been a negative issue here going on up to and including Ohio and Summit County. So in 2020, the United States population was 60.1% white, 18.5% Hispanic, Latinx, 13.4% Black, 5.9% Asian, 1.3% Native American, and then 0.8% other. I did that math, by the way, just to make it 100%, because that other wasn't part of their publication, but that obviously is true math-wise. Let me contrast that with the Pfizer population, which again was tens of thousands of people before they even approved this. 70.5% white, 13% Hispanic, Latinx, 10% Black, 5.5% Asian, and 1% Native American. So not quite the same as the U.S. population, but compared to many studies we've done in this country, way better in terms of diversity. And then Moderna, very similarly, they matched the American population a little bit better. Again, tens of thousands of people in this study. 63% white, 20% Hispanic, Latinx, 10% Black, 4% Asian, and 3% other ethnicities. They didn't break that down any further. And actually, there are a lot of participants in these studies were in the 45 to 64 age range. About 25% were 65 and older. And what wasn't done was individuals under 16. So we are not recommending either vaccine. They really can't, because we haven't done the studies, for anybody under 16. And in some cases, they'll do 17 or 18-year-olds. But just so you're aware that in general, we're talking adults 18 and older. The other thing you should know is that there is a very good, and it's been around for years, for vaccines, which of course we have many of those, including the flu vaccine every year and so forth, as well as for other medications. There's always a way to find out, are there side effects being caused by medications, or in this case, vaccines, on an ongoing basis. We don't just set it and forget it, as the Ronco commercials do, right? We're going to constantly monitor this and find out what's happening. So there's actually on the internet, there's a page for the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, the VAERS, as they call it. And it's literally VAERS.hhs.gov. So it's a national, our tax dollars are paying for it, federal monies. And it will report anything unusual going on. Look, we discovered that in white people, X is going on more than we expect, or in Black people, or in American Indians, and so forth. And I can tell you up to this point, because I looked at the database again to give you this information, there's nothing disproportionate in any population. That's good news for all of us. So it looks like the vaccines are just as good for everybody, and also, if you will, just as bad, in that there are some side effects, but they are not worse in certain populations than others. When they did the studies on top of that, it didn't seem to matter if people had comorbid medical conditions, obesity, diabetes, COPD, and so forth. So these vaccines work irrespective of that, irrespective of your sex, irrespective of religious background, and so on. They looked at a lot of parameters to make sure that this was the right move to put these out to the public. The United Kingdom released their vaccines a week or so before the United States. So by now we've got millions of people worldwide, including in the United States. We're at the million mark or so. Even in Ohio now, I've been getting these vaccines, at least shot number one, with no major side effects. I'll just tell you real quickly, it's fairly common to have a sore arm, so they're going to give it to you on your arm. And I actually had vaccine number one at this point, and I had it in my left arm, and it was actually, I was fortunate. I didn't have a lot of soreness, but some of my colleagues had pretty sore arms for a few days. That's pretty minor compared to getting COVID. It is possible after the second injection to get some mild side effects. Fatigue, maybe a headache, maybe some sore muscles separate from your arm, which may very well be sore, maybe even a low-grade fever. And what we've seen in the research and what I've seen talking to many colleagues in the local hospitals, they all got their vaccine starting in December in the hospital system, so they've now had two shots. There were some people who had 12 to 30 hours of not feeling all that good. And some of them said, yeah, if I was working that day, I probably would have called off, but nothing worse than that. And then it all went away. And quite frankly, the biggest side effect of getting both vaccines for most people I've talked to is relief. They are thrilled that they finally have some way to stop the fear of touching the wrong thing, inhaling the wrong air, and getting COVID. So I just want you to be aware that in general, the biggest side effect that we hear is relief from these vaccines. Just real quickly, and then I'll take questions, I'll comment. So there are others you're hearing about. AstraZeneca, which has actually been released in the United Kingdom, is done differently. And there's another company, Johnson & Johnson, huge company. Those two are using a fairly similar process to each other, but not the same process as Pfizer and Moderna. And their process actually is using, interestingly, other viruses, adenoviruses that don't tend to hurt, the versions that don't affect humans, and they're using those viruses to introduce the spike proteins into bodies, and then our bodies, again, all through this process, including mRNA, later down the pike, creates immunity on our bodies. Our bodies react to them as foreign invaders, and they attack it. This is not dissimilar to the Ebola vaccine, which has been created. AstraZeneca, if that comes to the United States, is 2 doses, day 1 and then about day 28. Johnson & Johnson is likely going to be one dose, which would be awesome, of course, a lot easier for everybody to accept one shot. That is similar, again, to the Ebola virus or the Zika virus vaccine that they've been working on. So they're really using technology, just to bring this full circle, that's been around a long time, and it's very, very important. As of yesterday's data, the United States has given out about 12.8 doses per 100 persons. So that's not a lot. We need way more than that to get the so-called herd immunity, to get rid of this virus and make it a thing of the past for us. About 1.1 million of those have been in Ohio, have received at least the first dose, not necessarily both, as I've not received both either. So we are too slow in this country. We need it to be faster. And the other comment I'll make is about the variants, because I'm sure there'll be questions. So in the variants, the issue seems to be that the UK variant, you'll see it as B117, which is just scientific jargon, about 1 to 4% of COVID cases in the United States right now are that variant. But because we're seeing less of the original version of COVID, that probably is going to ramp up quickly. We're going to probably start to hear there are more people getting B117 than the original COVID-19. The South African variant has been barely discovered here yet. But Fauci himself, Dr. Fauci, at the federal level has said he thinks it's probably more prevalent. We just haven't detected it yet. So there is some concern about these variants. There's even a third variant from Brazil that's been reported. And just so you know, this is common. It's common for cold viruses, flu viruses, all viruses. They gradually evolve. It really is evolution. And so they're going to have changes in their spike proteins. Again, the good news is the vaccines in vitro, meaning in the lab, not in the people yet, definitely seem to create some antibodies toward these new variants. So the original vaccines that we're all hoping to get and in the process of getting. And then the in vivo the researchers now think that means in the people themselves, it looks like it's working. We're not seeing people who got the vaccine, both doses, in hospital systems, because those were the ones we treated first, because they're dealing with everybody who actually has COVID, and they're not suddenly getting sick from the new variants. So the vaccines really do seem to be working, and they seem to be safe, mild side effects in the scheme of things compared to if you actually had COVID. And they all seem to work to keep us from getting so ill as to end up in a hospital. Or worse. So that, to me, that's a win. And I see no reason for people to, at this point, to be hesitant about the vaccines. And I'm hoping I put that in plain enough language, but I'm happy to take questions. So back to you, Kim.
Yeah, man, Dr. Smith, thank you so much for all that information. I want to point out something that you said. You said, man, the biggest side effect for people was relief. And so knowing who you are, that has to play a positive role into the mental health of an individual at this time, correct?
Correct. So, one of the problems that with COVID has not been the virus, it's been the fear. There's been a lot of fear for lots of reasons across the country in the recent times, as we're all aware. But the part of the fear is this constant, oh my gosh, I might get sick. Well, I wake up sick tomorrow. Well, that we don't usually live like that. We don't usually. So yeah, go through cold and flu season. You might have a little hesitancy. Maybe I'll wake up with a head cold one morning, but you're not like living in fear. I think people, physicians included, have been, because it's gone on now for a full year, have really been worried we're going to get sick, And of course, there's a small percentage who end up in the hospital or even die from the COVID. So we don't want that to happen. We got to get rid of that fear. So relief, you're exactly right. You hit that on the head. Relief is because now you've got the best chance science has to offer to not have to worry about that every morning. Am I going to wake up with COVID? And it doesn't only happen in the morning, obviously, but I'm just using that as an example. That you wake up and suddenly you think, oh my gosh, I've got symptoms. And right now we're at a point where if you get a hangnail, you probably think it's COVID, right? We're all like, anything's COVID. Oh, I sneezed once, I must have COVID right now.
Absolutely.
So that's part of the relief, is that at least it's probably not COVID if you've had both vaccines. And about 10 days to 14 days after you've had shot number 2, you should be immune, at least to getting very sick. Even the first shot, it's about a 50% protection activity, but you really need both from the science to make sure you can go on comfortably. And I know it'll be a question from the audience that right now we do not know. Let's say that once I have both shots, we don't know whether I can breathe in COVID and ultimately accidentally hand it off to you, Kemp, if we're in a meeting and we don't have our masks on. So right now, getting the shot still means that I need to wear my mask and you need to wear your mask, right? And we need to use Purell and wash our hands regularly and maintain that 6 foot or more distance. And that distance, by the way, is just physics, right? It's just, if I were to cough, that droplet is likely to fall before it hits you 6 feet away. That's just simple. The other thing I should mention, if any of you have paid attention to this, is one thing we're not hearing about this year is flu. Not just because people got flu vaccines. I do get it every year. I know not everybody does that. Even in healthcare, not everybody gets it, unfortunately. I really think they should. But the truth is, this year, because so many people are wearing a mask that covers their mouth and their nose, and they're staying a little bit further away when they're talking. You and I can have a good conversation 6 feet away. Doesn't have to be 3 feet away, right? So we can stand together and do that. And if you're wearing your mask, both people wearing masks, the likelihood we'll transmit the virus between each other, it drops down to below 1.5%. It really drops a lot. So we can see the proof. We are not seeing flu this year. It's really, I get the flu report every week from our Summit County Public Health. Shout out to them. They've been working really hard on this really tough problem. So really, thank you, Donna, Chris Barker, and others there. But the truth is we're not seeing a lot of flu because most people have realized Summit took longer than others. You know what? I better wear my mask and I better step back when I talk and I better Purell or ideally hand wash and stay safe.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Smith, tell me about this one protein, because I was in a conversation maybe about almost a month ago, right, with a buddy of mine who's like, man, I don't know, this one protein, like it never stops growing when it's kind of injected in you. Can you give me some more understanding about this one protein?
Certainly. So viruses, to try to draw a little bit of a picture in your minds, viruses kind of look like a little puff ball, and then they have spikes on the outside of that ball. And those spikes are the proteins that they use to get into our cells. They bind to our cells, they get themselves into our cells because that's how they replicate. So they make more virus. And so what we're doing, so that's what the virus does. That's what every virus does. And of course, there are hundreds of cold and flu viruses. If I get a cold virus this year, which could easily happen, of course, although it's less likely this year than most years because of masks and so forth. If I get a cold virus this year, I will not get that same cold virus next year. I will develop immunity by the time I'm done with that cold virus. However, there are hundreds of cold viruses, so of course I can still get a cold virus next year. It just won't be the same one, and nobody tests for that, right? We don't worry about you getting what they, for example, some of those are called rhinoviruses. Rhino being nose, right? So you get nose congestion and so forth. So rhinoviruses is one version of those. The protein issue is that we're putting one piece of this ball, that whole virus, we're taking that spike protein, and we're putting it into our bodies through the vaccine. And our goal ultimately is our bodies will react to that little protein as a foreign object. And our body, just as if you had a bacteria or a virus in your bloodstream, our bodies are wonderful at attacking foreign objects. Allergies are that system kind of gone awry, right? So if I'm allergic to cats, it's because my body sees the cat protein, which is the saliva that they lick on their fur, and it blows in the air. My body attacks that. The same immune system in a different way, but same concept, attacks, and I get symptoms. The symptoms we all get from a virus are actually not the virus, it's our body's reaction to the virus. So I want to make my body not hospitable for that virus. What do? I turn up the heat. I get a fever. The fever is not designed to hurt me, although it does tend to make us all feel pretty yucky. But the fever is meant to make my body hot enough to kill the virus off, not let it replicate. It's actually a defense mechanism of our bodies. Similar to sneezing, coughing, we're trying to get this stuff out of us is the reason. So that protein does not, to go back to your point, does not grow in the body. The protein is simply there to stimulate without us getting the virus, without it giving, you don't want to give us the virus if we can avoid it. So giving us a protein that we know our bodies, our immune systems can react to and create antibodies, which is literally what's happening. We can test for that. And we've discovered in those tests that many people who get these vaccines create the antibodies, and those antibodies then are ready. We have what are called memory cells in our immune system. So those cells sit in the background, and if they come in contact, now let's say that in 2022, I come in contact with coronavirus, my memory cells are sitting there in my bloodstream, in my immune system, and they run into this virus. They quickly mount the army of antibodies and take out the virus. That's literally what happens. And we're talking, of course, microscopic level. All this stuff is happening in our bodies and, of course, in our brains, and all these things are happening. But it's not about, I'm glad you brought that up. So it's not, we're not injecting, I've heard lots of myths. So we're not injecting tracking devices. We're not injecting something that's going to sit there and hurt us later. There's no reason to believe, any more than flu shots, which many of us take, and we've had those around for decades now. No reason to believe there's some long-term side effect that someday, I took the COVID vaccine and suddenly I'm 70 and bang, it turns into a whatever. Zero reason to believe that. What we don't know, on the flip side of that, is we don't know how long the immunity lasts from the vaccine. So we have people who have been studied for up to 18 months now. They still have immunity. So the people in the original studies still have, I should say, they still have detectable antibodies. And based on that, they're very likely to be able to remain immune to COVID. We don't know how long that'll last, right? So right now the question is, okay, let's say I finished my round of shots, just to use a date, in March 1st of 2021. Do I need another shot in March of 2022? Or can I wait 18 months? Can I wait 2 years? Can I wait for life? Some vaccines we take and we don't need them again. Our bodies hold on to the memory and we can strike out. Again, unseen, we don't have to think about it. Our bodies just do it and wipe out the invader.
Yeah, man, that's good, man. I love the imagery you gave with, like, it's the calling of the team together, right? Hey, we got somebody foreign in our area, man. We got to go attack it. I love it. Now, Dr. Smith, something that you said, and I think it
has to be said again is when you talked about there was no disproportionate across demographics, meaning black, brown, white people. Like all these things have kind of tested, if you will, the same. And I think that's worth delving into because I know that, there's been this distrust, if you will, in the African-American community with healthcare, especially with shots dating all the way back to the Tuskegee experiment, right? And so, man, I would love you just to make that mention again, because I think that's so important for our audience that is listening, because this is something that we're going to record and create as a resource for people to hear. So if you could just go over that, back through that again.
Sure. So let me just comment. It is accurate that the American healthcare system earned the distrust of people of color. They actively have earned that distrust. So I don't blame anybody of thinking, why do I trust them at this point? Tuskegee's one, but there's a million of these things. Nothing was done well. Over time, we've done better. And in this particular vaccine, maybe for the first time ever, it's the first time I've seen it written up like this, they actually purposely tried to get a diverse population to study the vaccine in, and they accomplished that. It's not perfect. So both vaccines had about 10% of the individuals of the tens of thousands, about 10% were determined to be black by their own admission and all that. And the American population is closer to 13% or so, right? So 10's not perfect, but 10's a lot better than historically when it was 0 or maybe 1%. And then again, in the Hispanic Latinx community, we're a little bit actually higher than that population in some of these studies. But the idea is we've hit a lot of, as you put it, black and brown and white people. And we really, therefore, can put more faith as a healthcare system that these vaccines have been studied in the right population. Let me take that further. Now we've given it out to millions of people. Actually, worldwide, it may be tens of millions at this point. And I actually pulled a slide yesterday. I'm going to pull up just to give you a sense of this. What's going on now with the vaccination rates? Ohio, and this is as of I think a week ago now. Ohio, of about 2.1% is the black vaccination rate, and 4.5% is the white vaccination rate. Neither one's good enough. I mean, we want to see 75% or something like that for herd immunity. But just so it is lagging. But there are a lot of people of color who are getting the vaccine, and by now, as I said, we would know through the VAERS, that's that federal website I mentioned, and through local anecdote even, we would know if people of color were having adverse reactions or problems more than white individuals. Some states it's way worse. Pennsylvania, the black, I mean, I'm using their words, I'm just reading you from the slide, the black vaccination rate, 0.6%. The white vaccination rate, 2.6%. Right, so some of this is even worse than we are doing in Ohio. Ohio is trying to do better with this, obviously, than we have been. And a lot of this is because of that reticence, again, earned by our American healthcare system of not being very friendly and sometimes downright evil towards people of color. We really, in this case, they've worked very hard to avoid that. I've actually saw a nice webinar where they were talking about the many researchers who have worked on the vaccines, particularly Pfizer and Moderna, and there were a lot of people of color who have actually worked. The scientists working on this was a very diverse group of people. So I hope that also helps dispel this thought that there's a bunch of white. Usually, the image people have is a bunch of white men sitting there doing their thing and then hoping to hand it out to a bunch of people of color. That is not how these were developed. It's also not how they were tested. And now, again, millions of people, including about 1 million in Ohio, are receiving these vaccines. And I've truly been keeping my ear to the ground in at least all of Northeast Ohio, a little bit in Columbus with my colleagues. And I'm hearing nothing untoward for any particular population, which is great, because we have to wonder too, right? We're all in this together. I really hope that, in fact, this, one of the few silver linings of the fear and going through COVID is that we, like you're doing with this program today, which again, I very much appreciate, is to bring us together. We're just people. And we're all fighting a common enemy, going back to my imagery there. This is a common enemy. Every one of our bodies works the same way. And we're going to fight this virus the same way. And we're going to interact. And we all need the social interactions that we're craving at times now, because we're all doing this like this, right? Virtually, we're not in a room, that kind of stuff. So I think I really hope there are others like telehealth and other things that have advanced probably 10 years faster than it would have, things that will help us all have better healthcare and come together. And always, every study from now on should always be a diverse study. I think we've proven that now. So hopefully this is truly as much as 2020 will go down in history as a pretty negative year. You've all seen lots of cartoons and memes and stuff about it now. It also might be the turning point in some of what we need to be doing so that we can just all be people.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your candor there, Dr. Smith. That makes a lot of sense. If people are looking to get the vaccine, where do they go? Who do they need to call?
Great question. So what they've done, so far we're working on 2 groups of people. The governor has called this, I think even the federal government has done this, Group 1A and Group 1B. So Group 1A has mostly been first responders and healthcare providers, as well as people living in congregate living situations like group homes, residential programs for drug and alcohol treatment, and developmental disability group homes and things like that. 1B, and you've probably all seen a lot of press on this, has been around individuals. Initially, we started with people age 80 and over, and each week it's dropped down to a point where, as of yesterday, we are at 65 and older. I think that's the last phase of Group 1B. What's happening is there's a big push right now because 1A didn't get finished before 1B started, so we've still got agencies in Summit County that need to have their healthcare people, some of whom are seeing individuals one-to-one, not virtually. Not everybody's got the ability to do things on Zoom or any of the competitors. So right now, people can go on to the Summit County Public Health website. There is a way to put in your information so they can reach out to you when there's opportunity for vaccinations. That's one thing you can do, even if you're not over 65, even if you're not officially a 1A or a 1B category. The other thing that's happened is there's a big push from the federal government to get more vaccine out. And so the large pharmacy companies are in the process of gearing up for this. So at least I've seen now Walgreens, CVS, Drug Mart, there may be others. So I'm not trying to leave anybody out. Those are the 3 I've heard the most about, where people have been able to sign up and then get an email when there's an opportunity for vaccination. I don't think just to finish sort of part of that question, I don't think it matters whether you get offered Moderna or Pfizer. Either one has been shown to work, and really they were created in very much the same way, using this messenger RNA mechanism, which again has been shown to be very safe. So if you're offered Pfizer, go for it. My understanding now is that the software being used at public health and therefore probably at the pharmacies, when you sign up for shot number 1, it will also allow you to sign up for your second shot. So you can pre-plan. When this first hit the country, we didn't have that. Now we have that. So now it's much easier for you to sign up and plan to get shot number 2, whether that's 3 weeks or about 4 weeks later, but certainly within the 6-week window from CDC.
Awesome. Man, Dr. Smith, this is such valuable information. And I'm so appreciative of your time. I know we're going to have different questions coming in. So as they come into us, Doctor, if it's okay, I may just forward them over to you, and so that we can make sure these questions get answered, because like you said, this is an important discussion, but also an important fight that we're in. And again, the only way we're really going to be able to survive and get through it is us staying together. So Doctor, I know you got a full day. We're going to be together later on this evening, so I'm going to let you go. But thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for how you're loving Akron by, just being accessible and being a resource for us. So Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you. And again, please forward those to me. My goal is to be value added here to help whoever I can help. So please do.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for joining us today, and stay right here. I'll be right back.
Looking to take your love for Akron to another level? Start by signing up for Love Akron's monthly emails by visiting loveakron.org. You'll get updates about all the latest Love Akron happenings. You'll learn the ways you can help unify the colors, cultures, and congregations of our communities to see greater Akron thrive. You'll meet changemakers from around the city, plus gain insight on how they're propelling Akron forward, making it a better place to live and work. You'll learn about Love Akron's partnerships and have an opportunity to connect with local organizations actively making a difference citywide. You'll be inspired through Kemp Boyd's monthly Coach's Corner videos, and so much more. Visit loveakron.org to sign up for an e-newsletter today. That's loveakron.org. And remember, if you don't do anything else today, love Akron.
And thank you all for joining us, and big shout out to Dr. Smith just for his time. And like he said, big shout out to Don Scota over at the Summit County Public Health. I know they're working day and night trying to get as many people signed up and vaccinated as possible. And thank you so much for tuning in, as always, with us. And, you know, I want to say this because I think it's appropriate for us to say it, but man, happy Black History Month. We want to continue to celebrate those among us, not just in the past, but also in the present, that are continually making history right now among us. So I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about those who have helped me and mentored me along the way. I'm thinking about people like Bishop Johnson, Robert DeJeanette, man, my very own Pastor Lori Porter, who have helped me to become who I am, and I'm still becoming. So I'm literally standing on their shoulders. And so, man, the question was asked, and I saw this somewhere. It says, man, well, why don't we have a White History Month? Listen, Black History Month is not meant to be a divisive month or divisive element. It's simply raising about the consciousness or the awareness of those people of color who have made, man, significant impact within our society, within America. And so, man, I'm excited that, man, I was born in the month of February. I'll be celebrating my birthday this coming Friday. So, hey, send presents, gifts, man, all that you can. But I'm excited about that because I feel like even within myself, man, I'm making history. I'm making history, right? But how I love my wife, how I love my children, how I do those types of things. And sometimes the history that we're making, it's not always the big thing. It's not the thing that's always recognized on the news or from different people. But sometimes it comes best when it's recognized by those closest to you. So I'm just so thankful for each and every one of you continuing to encourage us here at Love Akron to do what it is that we're doing by bringing about these episodes that are helping us to encounter better together. And man, that's when you can do that, that what makes things so much better. And so we're just excited. We're excited about you. We're excited about the role that we get to play in Greater Akron with helping to love it better. And so for all of you that are out there right now, again, thank you for being with us. Next week, we're going to be in our Jedi Council meeting, so we will not have a Love Akron Live. And if you want to know about, man, what is the Jedi Council, please email me at kboydloveakron@gmail.com. Again, email me at kboydloveakron@gmail.com, okay, to find out more information about the Jedi Council. And also, man, I'm so excited about the next episode of Love Akron Live that we have coming up on February the 24th, where we're going to have a great panel talking about just what we mentioned a little bit today, about some of the distrust that has existed within the African-American community as it results to healthcare. And so you heard Dr. Smith say, hey, that is a real thing. And he even said, man, I get it and I understand it, and there should be. But man, how do we help to get to where we can somehow help to alleviate some of that distrust that has existed? And so we're excited about that. We're excited about you coming and being with us. And again, as we always say before we get off, if you don't do anything else today, make sure that you love Akron. Take care, everybody. Have a great day and a great week.
Much greater need in Akron that I can't see.
I could eventually, stood up and postured myself in a very prideful way. You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? The people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of Kemp
if there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron.
Make sure that you love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm like, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation. Conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask that you count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, if this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment from Love Akron forever.